Good evening. 4 days ago, the governor of Tennessee signed into law a new bathroom bill which protects access to gender-specific restrooms based on biological sex. Meanwhile, yesterday over in Arizona, the state Senate over there held a special meeting about the audit. And in that meeting, one of the companies which is actually conducting the audit revealed that they were able to recover data that they initially thought was deleted. Meanwhile, in a newly resurfaced video from 10 years ago, it shows the co-founder of BLM express her fondness for Mao Zedong's Little Red Book. And lastly, over in Michigan, a judge over there has thrown out a case which was requesting an audit of the 2020 election over in Antrim County. Let's go through these stories together. This is your daily Facts Matter update, and I'm your host, Roman from the Epoch Times. Now let's begin today's discussion over in Arizona. And actually, right before we do, as a quick aside, right there at the top of the description box is a link to Epoch TV, our brand new no censorship video platform where you can find all of the awesome Epoch Times' programs, like The Larry Elder Show, China in Focus, Crossroads, American Thought Leaders, Life and Times, as well as our show, Facts Matter. And on there, you will find exclusive episodes that you cannot find here on YouTube. Again, that link will be right there at the top of the description box. I hope you check it out and subscribe. And now let's really start over in Arizona. The Maricopa County Board of Supervisors recently released this 14-page statement right here, which among several other things calls for an end to the 2020 election audit, and it also disputes several of the allegations that were levied against them by the election auditors. Here's what part of the statement says right here. It is time to end this, for the good of the Senate, for the good of the country, and for the good of the democratic institutions that define us as Americans. Now, we already discussed some of the accusations that the Arizona State Senate was levying against Maricopa County officials in a previous episode. I believe it was 2 episodes ago if you wanted to check it out. However, as a part of the statement, the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors called these accusations false, defamatory, and beneath the dignity of the Senate. Furthermore, they also said that they had provided proper chain of custody documentation to the state Senate's liaison, that each box was sealed with tamper-evident tape or standard clear sturdy packing tape, and that the supposed badge discrepancies stem from a misunderstanding of how election tabulation works. And then, in this letter, they actually go point by point and answer the Senate's questions and address their concerns, the concerns that we mentioned in our previous episode. Now, in regards to the election machine passwords, the ones that the Senate needs in order to run an audit of the election machines, the officials reiterated in this letter that they could not produce these passwords to access the administrative control functions in the Dominion voting machines because Dominion does not give them such passwords. They said that this stipulation is actually laid out clearly in the contracts, and here's specifically what they wrote. The contract is a public record. You could have requested it. Even a cursory review would show there is no contractual provision granting the county the ability to acquire Dominion's proprietary passwords. Instead, you call us liars and insult us, when a simple public records request would have helped you avoid such indecent conduct. Regardless, we cannot give you a password that we do not possess any more than we can give you the formula for Coca-Cola. We do not have it. We have no legal right to acquire it, and so we cannot give it to you. Now, the implication here is that the Senate would have to go to Dominion itself in order to get the passwords. However, as we already discussed in a previous episode, Dominion released a statement saying that they will not be giving the passwords to the Cyber Ninjas, which is the firm that's leading this audit, since they are not accredited by the U.S. Elections Assistance Commission. Furthermore, in this letter, the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors also continued to refuse to hand over either the routers or the router images to the election auditors, meaning that if the Senate wishes to acquire these routers, they will have to take some form of legal action to do so, meaning that they might have to issue another subpoena for them. Although thus far, the Senate president has not given any indication one way or the other. In fact, we here at the Epoch Times reached out to her, and thus far it's not clear whether any more subpoenas will be issued. And to wrap up the motif of this statement from the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors, Jack Sellers, who is the chairman of the board, he said this: "This board is done explaining anything to these people who are playing investigator with our constituents' ballots and equipment paid for with real people's tax dollars. I would hope that Senate President Fan steps up, shows some political courage, pushes back, gets rid of these contractors that have no business at the Coliseum." The letter then ended by calling for an immediate end to the 2020 audit. Now, it's worth noting here that Maricopa County's position on this matter does not actually have an effect on the audit itself. It will continue as long as the Senate wants it to. However, this defiance from the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors definitely rankled some of Arizona's Republicans. For instance, Kelly Ward, who is the chairwoman of the Arizona Republican Party, she released a video on social media in which she said that board members view themselves as above the law, above review, above reproach, who gives these local officials the right to challenge the constitutional authority of the Arizona Senate and of the Arizona courts? Now, when she said the Arizona courts, that's likely a reference to the officials not handing over the routers, which is in direct defiance of a court order. Now, yesterday, the Arizona State Senate held a special meeting about this audit over in Phoenix. And in that meeting, among several other things, it was revealed that the data, which was previously believed to have been deleted from an election machine, has actually been recovered. During the meeting, Ben Cotton, who is the founder of one of the firms conducting this audit, he said that he discovered a master file table that clearly indicated that the database directory was deleted from that server. Subsequently, I've been able to recover all of those deleted files and I have access to that data. He added that I have the information I need from the recovery efforts of the data. However, his statement actually led to some backlash from Maricopa County officials who wrote this on Twitter. Just want to underscore that Arizona Senate's Arizona audit account accused Maricopa County of deleting files, which would be a crime. Then a day after our technical letter explained they were just looking in the wrong place, all of a sudden, auditors have recovered the files. Now, if you would like to watch the full Senate meeting for yourself, it's about an hour long. It'll be in the description box below this video. I'll put a link to it down there. Now, as to the audit itself, as we mentioned in our previous episode, it is currently on hold as there are several high school graduations taking place at the Arizona Veterans Memorial Coliseum. Once those finish up, which will be at the end of this week, election auditors will be able to re-enter the facility and starting next week, restart the hand recount process. And they have until June 30th, that's based on their new contract, to continue the audit. Now, based on the most recent numbers that we at the Epoch Times had access to, it looks like they still have about 1.6 million ballots to go through. Now, if you'd like to read about the exchanges between the Maricopa County officials and the Arizona State Senate, including this full letter, which I would recommend you read, it has a lot of interesting examples as well as answers to the Arizona State Senate's accusations. All of this will be linked in the description box below this video for you to check out. And by the way, that is that same little description box that is right below that like button that I hope you take a moment to smash, because videos that are like this, talking honestly about what is happening in this world, including over here in Arizona, are routinely suppressed by big tech giants like YouTube, while other videos that have a certain different take on what's going on are shared out and have unfettered access to people's feeds. However, when you smash that like button below this video, you are forcing the YouTube algorithm, the same algorithm that suppresses videos like this, you are forcing that algorithm to share this video out to potentially thousands of more people, letting the truth be known far and wide. And now let's talk a little bit about BLM. A video recently resurfaced from 10 years ago, which shows the co-founder of BLM, Ms. Patrisse Cullors, expressing her fondness for Mao's Little Red Book. Now, before we get into what she actually said in that video, in case you've never heard of it, Mao's Little Red Book is also known as Quotations from Chairman Mao Zedong. And it is a collection of quotes as well as sayings from Mao, who is, of course, the Chinese communist dictator who is responsible for tens of millions of deaths in the 20th century. And this Little Red Book was a national bestseller over in China, largely because of the fact that it was actually required reading during the Cultural Revolution. It was literally required reading across the entire country. Everyone was forced to own and study one of these little books. Chinese people, they were forced to memorize, recite, and quote Mao's words while they were at work or just milling about their daily lives, on the street or at the market or wherever. And if they did not memorize Mao's words well enough, well, that would have been very dangerous for them because they might have been then branded as counter-revolutionaries and persecuted. And by the way, it's worth mentioning that a lot of people are comparing the Chinese Cultural Revolution to this new woke revolution that is happening here in America right now, wherein not having the right opinion can get you canceled, fired, or branded as some form of heretic. Regardless, back to that BLM speech that recently resurfaced. The video that recently came to light came from 2010. And it was from a speech that was given at the Labor Community Strategy Center, which is a communist think tank out in Los Angeles founded by Mr. Eric Mann, who is a former member of the Weather Underground. And this so-called think tank, by the way, that's out in Los Angeles, you can think of it more as a training center for revolutionaries. Here's how the center itself describes its philosophy. The Labor Community Strategy Center is an urban experiment focusing in Black and Latino communities with deep historical ties to the long history of anti-colonial, anti-imperialist, pro-communist resistance to the U.S. empire. And so, during a speech at this communist center 10 years ago, Ms. Cullors, who is the co-founder of BLM, she said that Eric Mann had written a book which was comparable to Mao's Little Red Book, and she said that as a compliment. Here's specifically what she said. I was speaking to this young person from Arizona who is trying to fight SB 1070, which was a Senate bill trying to pass the Arizona State Senate. And he grabbed the book written by Mann and he said, "It's like Mao's Red Book." And I was like, "Man, that's what I was thinking." And it was just really cool to hear him make that connection. Then later in her speech, she suggested buying 10 to 15 copies of these books and organizing a youth group, adding that, "I think I have a really important role speaking to youth. Maybe it's because I came to the movement at 17 and a half years old, so I have just a knack for knowing how to organize young people." Now, it's unclear whether she actually went out and bought those 10 to 15 copies of the book, but we do know that 10 years later, after she gave that speech, she did buy a few houses as well as a mansion over in Los Angeles. Now, this is not the first video of hers which resurfaced in the last few years. In fact, just a few years ago, another video was made public wherein the same BLM co-founder described her ideology as being decidedly Marxist. Here's what she said in that previous video. "The first thing, I think, is that we actually do have an ideological frame. We are trained Marxists. We are super versed on sort of ideological theories. And I think that what we really try to do is build a movement that could be utilized by many, many black folk." Now, furthermore, what's interesting to note is that the Black Power movement here in America has actually been influenced by Mao Zedong's theories for a very long time. In fact, if you look back at Mao's goal in launching the Cultural Revolution in the first place, one of his goals was to actually export revolution to the entire world and start what he called a world revolution. And around the same time that he was doing this, back in the 1960s, the Marxist Black Panther Party was founded by one of Mao's followers. How do we know that he was one of Mao's followers? Well, there was a very revealing article that was published in the Chinese edition of the New York Times 5 years ago titled, "Let 100 Panthers Bloom, the Black Panthers and Mao Zedong." And in that article, it actually discussed how Huey Newton, who founded the Black Panther Party back in 1966, he regarded Mao as a hero, and then the article went on to say this. "In Harlem in the late 1960s and early 1970s, it seemed as though everyone had a copy of the Little Red Book, and that this controversial radical group was a major force in the Cultural Revolution." Now, we here at the Epoch Times, we reached out to Patrice Cullors, the co-founder of BLM, for comment on this newly resurfaced video, but we have yet to hear back. Regardless, if you would like to go deeper into the subject, then you should check out the article that is linked down in the description box below. It's actually written by one of our Chinese-American journalists who went deeper into the Chinese internet for more examples of how the Chinese Communist Party and the Black Power movement actually have a lot of crossover. The link again will be down there in the description box. And now, before we move on over and discuss what happened in Michigan, where a judge ruled on a possible election audit out in Antrim County, I would like to take a quick moment and introduce our sponsor for today's episode, and I will do so from the sound booth. The sponsor for today's episode is American Hartford Gold, which is a very cool company run by patriots that sells precious metals, gold and silver, that can be delivered directly to your doorstep, or they can be deposited into your IRA account, making it super simple. Now, they are one of my personal gold and silver bullion dealers. They're awesome. They have great customer service. And actually, when you call them, their wait music is a speech by Ronald Reagan. So even when they put me on hold, I appreciate it. They have an A+ rating with a Better Business Bureau, and so you know they're a trustworthy organization. And right now they're offering a special to viewers of our program of Facts Matter. So when you call them or when you place an order with them, depending on how much gold and silver you buy, they will not only throw in free silver, $1,500 worth of free silver, but they can also send you a free safe so you can keep your precious metals in your home knowing that they're safe and secure. So the link to them will be in the description box below, or you can give them a call at 866-242-2352, or you can text Roman to 65532. Again, give them a call, click on the link in the description box below. And American Hartford Gold, thank you so much for sponsoring our episode. And now, Roman in the studio, back to you. And now let's move on over to Michigan. Yesterday, a judge in Michigan threw out a case which was challenging the 2020 election over in Antrim County. Now, the plaintiff in the case was a man named William Bailey, who is a resident of Antrim County, and he was seeking an independent audit of Antrim County's election. However, the judge in the case ruled that Mr. Bailey had already received relief, meaning that he had already received what he was asking for. The judge's reasoning was that due to the fact that there was already a risk-limiting audit that was conducted by county clerks over in Antrim County, the entire case is essentially moot. And in case you don't remember, that risk-limiting audit took place back in February, and it reviewed a random sample of about 18,000 ballots. In explaining his decision to dismiss the case, here's how the judge explained himself. There is no right either in the constitutional section or the statute for the independent audit that Mr. Bailey seeks, as the plaintiffs have either received all of their requested relief or are not entitled to the relief requested as a matter of law. The plaintiff claims are in fact moot. Now, it's worth noting that the judge, after issuing his decision, stressed the fact that this ruling was not about testing the facts in the case, but about, rather, testing the legal sufficiency of the claims brought forth by Mr. Bailey. He specifically said that the ruling did not mean that the election machines were not corrupted or not corruptible. It also did not mean that there were no problems in the way that the county conducted the election. It simply meant that the plaintiff did not have a sufficient enough legal argument to conduct an election audit. Now, we here at the Epoch Times, we actually spoke to Mr. Bailey's lawyer, who told us that they are planning on appealing the decision as well as filing a motion for reconsideration. He also told us that he intends to file other lawsuits as well. And so we'll be keeping an eye on this case out in Michigan, and if any more developments emerge, I'll let you know right away. Otherwise, if you would like to read either the judge's entire decision or the legal back and forth in the case, that will be in the description box below this video for you to check out. And now let's move on over to Tennessee. 4 days ago, the governor of Tennessee signed into law a new bathroom bill which protects access to gender-specific bathrooms based on biological sex. So this bill is called the Tennessee Accommodations for All Children Act, and the way that it's written is a little bit in reverse. It's not what you'd expect. It essentially states that a public school must provide reasonable accommodation for anyone who, for any reason, is unwilling or unable to use a multi-occupancy restroom or changing facility designated for the person's sex and located within a public school building. However, there is a stipulation. The law goes on to say that a reasonable accommodation does not include access to a restroom or changing facility that is designated for use by members of the opposite sex while persons of the opposite sex are present or could be present. And so what this new law essentially says is that a school must provide accommodation to someone who does not want to use a public bathroom, which is not in line with their biological sex, but that accommodation cannot include allowing them into the other gender's bathroom. Maybe they'll have a separate facility for them altogether. Furthermore, this new law defines a person's sex as follows: a person's immutable biological sex as determined by anatomy and genetics existing at the time of birth. Now, as you can imagine, this new law triggered many progressive groups, which claim that it will discriminate against the LGBTQ community. For example, here's what an organization called the Human Rights Campaign wrote in response to this new law. These anti-equality pieces of legislation are being pushed by national extremist groups and peddled by lawmakers in Tennessee in an effort to sow fear and division. The bill further discriminates against transgender students and opens up schools to legal consequences if a student believes they have shared a sex-segregated space, bathrooms, locker rooms, or another changing facility with a transgender student. This bill is squarely in defiance of federal law and flagrantly discriminatory. Now, we here at the Epoch Times reached out to the governor of Tennessee for comment on these criticisms, but we have yet to hear back. However, prior to signing the bill, here's what the governor said. This bill provides equal access to every student. It's a reasonable accommodation. It allows for accommodation for every student regardless of their gender. I think it's a smart approach to the challenge. Now, according to the National Conference of State Legislatures, which is a group working to strengthen state houses, it said that as of 2 years ago, 15 other states were also considering these types of bathroom bills as well. Now, in terms of what will happen next, well, very likely one of these progressive groups or several of these progressive groups will file a lawsuit and test the constitutionality of this new law. If and when that happens, we'll let you know and we'll follow that case all the way through. If you would like to read more about this new bathroom bill out in Tennessee, the link to that will be in the description box below this video for you to check out. And now lastly, as we already mentioned in several previous episodes, on the very same day that Joe Biden was sworn into office, YouTube made the unilateral decision to demonetize our program. We can now no longer run any ads before, during, or after episodes, and the super chat feature has just been disabled. They're essentially snuffing out our independent journalism. However, we here at the Epoch Times have launched something very cool. It's called Epoch TV. It's our brand new no-censorship video platform where you can find all of the awesome Epoch Times' programs like The Larry Elder Show, Crossroads with Joshua Phillip, American Thought Leaders, China in Focus, Life and Times, and our show Facts Matter. And on there you will find exclusive episodes that you can find only on Epoch TV. That link again will be at the top of the description box. I hope you click on it, I hope you subscribe, and I hope that you join us on this journey of exploring this world through honest journalism based in truth and tradition. And now lastly, if you haven't already, smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe to this YouTube channel if you haven't already in order to get this type of honest news content delivered directly into your YouTube feed while you still can. And until next time, I'm your host, Roman from the Epoch Times. Stay informed and stay free.